John Fetterman, man, just continues this, yeah, big fat baby. He's just stomping around, promoting Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza, the campaign of mass killing, at least 30,000 presumed dead, 23,000 known to be dead, but there's all those folks under the rubble that are unaccounted for. 4% of Gaza's population, according to Euromed Monitor, is either dead, missing, or maimed. That's 90,000 people. And yet that has not deterred John Fetterman here, who decides to say, this is at a luncheon on Capitol Hill organized by the Orthodox Union. He said this yesterday, ahead of today's genocide hearings in the ICJ, criticizing South Africa for bringing this case against Israel.
Who are they really fighting? It's a group of cowards. They hide in tunnels. They hide behind civilians. They attack, kill, and mutilate children, women.
But that's not Israel.
Stop talking about proportion on that. They shot their best shot on October 7th, and they would have taken more lives if they couldn't do that, but they couldn't do it. And now let's also talk about that. Now we're talking about genocide.
Why couldn't they do it?
And now South Africa is bringing that kind of a trial. Maybe South Africa being able to sit this one out when they're talking about criticizing today.
Okay, so he has no historical understanding at all, or is being purposefully obtuse. I don't understand. I just read this for his own edification here. Israel and apartheid-era South Africa, this is from The Guardian, developed a close military alliance that included collaboration on nuclear weapons, even though many of the Afrikaner leaders of the time, this is in the 70s, had a deep history of anti-Semitism. John Forster, the then prime minister, was feted on a visit to Jerusalem in 1976, despite having been interned during the Second World War for Nazi sympathies and membership of a fascist militia that burned Jewish-owned properties. After the ANC came to power in 1994, it established full diplomatic relations with Palestine, while ties with Israel deteriorated over time. The point being there, John, is that the reason that South Africa isn't sitting this one out is because the people that presided over the apartheid system are not in power right now. It is the legacy of that apartheid system that is informing the current leadership of the South African government to take this up. So, like, the hypocrisy angle is hilariously ahistorical and also makes no sense in this context.
It's incoherent and demands actually a follow-up because, like you say, like, how do you interpret that? Is he saying, like, oh, you are a white supremacist apartheid country, how do you have a stand? Or is the interpretation this one, which End Wokeness took, which is, holy shit, did John Fetterman just call out white genocide in South Africa?
Oh my God.
Right? And it's
no way.
I know
He's
he
not
did
that.
it.
He's not.
There's no way, right? I don't think so. But I'm saying you have to clarify that, John, because John Fetterman is a fucking joke. Like, I'm sorry, that is Sarah Palin level discussion of this issue, and I don't care about any excuses for it. Like, I don't think it's. I don't personally. I don't imagine that if you could ask him these questions pre-stroke, he'd have any more coherence about it. So I want to put that up front. Like, I think he is as disgraceful as a senator on this issue as we have. I mean,
the worst for sure.
It's disgusting. Yeah, I mean, and again, when he talks about all of the things he's accusing Hamas of, that's what Israel's doing, buddy. Like, why didn't Hamas have, when he said they would if they could? Here's the question. Why couldn't they? They can't. Why couldn't they? Why? They don't have an airport in Gaza. They don't have, why were they coming over on frickin' hang gliders? I mean, and motorcycles. Like, they don't have the capacity to do what he's accusing them of. The state that has that capacity is the wealthy first world nation funded by the United States government with a massive like self-sustaining at this point military industrial complex, a country of 9 million people, is top 10 in the world in weapons manufacturing and wartime intelligence development. It's a heavily militarized colonial outpost for the West, and they have the ability to commit genocide as they're doing right now. Hamas doesn't.
Exactly. Like, that's why all these discussions of calling Hamas Nazis is ludicrous. You know what the Nazis had is the Wehrmacht and an industrial base. And
to do their genocide, it's actually it's honestly it's Holocaust revisionism.
Yeah,
it really is.
The Israel and Zionists will use the Holocaust in any way they find practical. But here's another section from this, which is I think even worse than that section there, which is just moronic. But this is genocidal.
Protests all around the nation. They're blocking tunnels. They're blocking roads. Why? Why aren't they protesting? When will we get the hostages back home? Why aren't they protesting Hamas? Why aren't they protesting systemic rape and torture of Israeli women and children?
Systemic?
I don't ever get it. We can't really until we get every last one brought. And every last one of them are in my walls in my office. I encourage anything if you want to stop by. You can see that. And Hamas is anathema to peace. We'll never have a stable two-state solution. We will never have any peace for Israel until they are fully eliminated.
Take it up with Netanyahu, who helps fund
the right for
Hamas.
Israel to eliminate them, that right doesn't come from me or anyone other than from Israel. And not only do they have the right to do that, I encourage them to do that. I hope they do that, every last one. Okay?
Yeah. So
I want to dwell on his recycling of the phrase "every last one" to describe two different things. The first half was every last hostage, and now it's every last member of Hamas. And Israel has a right to exterminate them, or was that the word he used? Get rid of every last one of them. And their right comes from themselves, and we have to support that. That is we're not talking about a serious person here.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting earlier, Matt, when you were talking on this, but it's just surprising because, a lot of our politicians are Zionists, Zionists, at least in their rhetoric, due to the nature of the way AIPAC has a stranglehold on large parts of our government and lobbying apparatus. But this is above and beyond what I think the average, not just Democratic politician, but even Republican politician is doing in pursuit of supporting this genocide. And that's what's especially galling, because some people would say you should have known he's always been sort of pro Israel, but that's unfortunately within our government just a prerequisite position that you have to espouse. And if you don't espouse it, usually the only people they allow to not espouse it are on the Republican side, and you don't want to align with those people on anti-Israel sentiment. So I think it just took the degree to which he is going hard for Israel, draping himself in the flag, justifying genocide, making a cloak out of the hostages, which the Israeli IDF are shooting when they try to escape.
Exactly.
Is just beyond the pale.
I mean, they're bombing them to hell right now, bombing them to smithereens, and then they're going to just blame it on Hamas because the Israeli government doesn't care about the hostages. They wanted this moment, Netanyahu in particular, to solidify his position, but that's more of his interests. The rest of the government and the majority coalition, they're thrilled at the idea of being able to use this moment, regardless of the lives of the hostages, to kill as many Palestinians as possible. They mow the lawn every year or so, which is them just killing hundreds of Palestinians to show them who's boss. But now they feel like this is a blank check for the genocide that they've always really wanted to engage in. When he says systemic rape and torture of Israelis by Hamas, I don't think he knows what the word systemic means, because the systemic sexual abuse happens in Israeli jails and prisons. The Israeli government shut down an NGO that was looking into sexual abuse of Palestinian prisoners who are. Israel's one of I think the only country in the world that just detains children in wartime, like without or not the only country in the world. I shouldn't say that, but there's a specificity to the definition that I'm missing at this point. But they do detain children without really any pretext. And there have been multiple allegations of abuse of sexual nature of Palestinians.
The population of imprisoned Palestinians that existed on October 6th that they could have used for hostage trades instead of bombing Gaza, which is actually like when the Fetterman is supporting Israel and how they decided to use those hostages as a means to an end, as a means to continuing to cut the grass. They're using those hostages as lawnmower gasoline to continue cutting the grass. And John Fetterman supports that. So go fuck yourself talking about hostages, Fetterman, because actually Anthony Blinken had the tweet out the day after, and he deleted it, when he was discussing with Turkey that actually what we need is a ceasefire and hostage negotiations. Israel did not want to free the people that they have imprisoned for the Israelis that Hamas took. Like, that's the decision they made. So there's a contradiction between supporting this rescuing hostages and eliminating Gaza, or eliminating Hamas, which is, you know.
And I just to button up the point about the sexual violence, like, there has been New York Times piece about sexual violence against Israeli women on October 7th. I think it's possible that happened.
Of course, it should all be investigated.
It should all be investigated, but Israel's blocking it.
Yeah.
And there have been flags raised about, like, really the lack of cohesive first-person testimony in that piece.
And objectively, it is being used as a propaganda object to continue a slaughter.
The point, though, about that, though, is even if that happened, it's not systemic.
Yeah.
It's not systemic. The systemic violence is against the Palestinian people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes to the point, a lot of points that were being made by South Africa in front of the ICJ today, where, like, even if you were to concede that Hamas was establishing that kind of systemic sexual violence as part of, like, some sort of terror campaign, that would still not be a justification for a genocide against, the Palestinian population, which Israel is currently holding under occupation. The crimes of one terrorist group don't give you, the blank check to commit genocide against anybody who happens to share that the same ethnic group as that terrorist group. So, I think that was a good part of their statements today, or their arguments today, rather, where it sort of disabused people of a lot of the, common arguments that Israel has been making in defense of its own genocide as just not germane to that point.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's take a call really quickly, and then we'll get to that.